if you have an epidemic, you try and stop the infection. So those are all public health measures that are far more effective than developing new antibiotics because they're much cheaper than having to develop new antibiotics. But of course, we have resistant bacteria, so we always have to stay ahead of the game, and we need to develop new antibiotics. And that again has many aspects to it. We need to understand microbial pathogenesis. We need to understand how bacteria are actually, why certain bacteria are virulent, what is the cause of virulence, and how they interact with the host. And that will give us more targets to kill off bacteria. And then we need to have better diagnostics that will also help with surveillance. We can try and develop better vaccines as a preventive measure. And finally, with structures like the ribosome, we can develop new drugs and novel therapies for bacteria. So I've told you a lot about the ribosome, and I want to close with a movie of the ribosome to show you how complicated the process is, to give you a realistic understanding of what the process is. And of course, there's a lot about it that we don't understand in atomic terms. So I'm going to close with this movie and show it to you. So here is the genetic message in the form of mRNA, and this is the small subunit. And there are 3 protein factors that help guide it to the start of the message, along with some base pairing between the RNA and the subunit itself. Now these protein factors eventually help with the joining of the large subunit and leaves, and this factor called IF2 eventually hydrolyzes a molecule called GTP and leaves, and that leaves the ribosome with the first tRNA and the first amino acid. And then what has to happen is a protein brings a new tRNA to it, and it eventually leaves, and now this second tRNA brings an amino acid that's joined with the first amino acid in the large subunit of the ribosome. Now these tRNAs move first with respect to the large subunit, and then with the help of the factor, they move with respect to the small subunit and drag the genetic message with them. So now there's a new triplet on the mRNA that's waiting for the new tRNA that comes in and binds and brings the third tRNA to the ribosome. So you can see how much more complicated it is than that early cartoon version I showed you. This happens at the rate of 20 residues per second, and the polypeptide chain of amino acids emerges from the ribosome through a tunnel and folds into the protein. The shape of the protein, the structure of the protein depends on what the protein is, which depends on what the sequence of amino acids is. And eventually it reaches the end of the message, where it reaches a codon called the stop codon, and that's recognized by a factor which cleaves off the protein, so the protein floats away from the ribosome after some processing. And then another factor, the protein factor, splits apart the ribosome so it can start all over again on either the same or a new message. So I hope to have had some idea of how proteins are made, how antibiotics work, what went into soluble structures, and so on. So you have a rough flavor for what this field was about and why it got the Nobel Prize last year. Thank you very much.